Messi versus Ronaldo. This is about the most basic question that you can ask a soccer or football fan, and their answer will tell you a lot about their fandom. So this week, what I'm going to do is break down some of our awesome pricing and demand index data and look at just the matches that Leo Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are playing in to see if the data can tell us anything. So let's get into it. All right, and before we get to the really good stuff, I do want to take just a few very quick minutes to share with you our top 3 movers and our bottom 3 losers over the past 7 days. So the top 3 movers are all in Mexico. First up, we have Guadalajara, which over the past 7 days has increased their forward-looking advertised hotel pricing by 19.4% for this South Korea versus Czechia game. The main storyline here is that Czechia in the past week has now made it into the tournament. And you can see where I'm moving the cursor over the graph here that hoteliers have really responded quite well to Czechia being that opponent that South Korea got. So demand to me looks like, it's extreme demand levels, but it looks like the market is reacting well to that news that Czechia is into the tournament. Next up, we've got Guadalajara again. So the 7-day pricing change has been up 13.4% for Mexico versus South Korea. Another extreme demand event here for this market. And we've seen some ups and downs with this particular game, but this game is nearing its all-time high yet again for pricing, signaling that this is going to be a huge game, and it's very likely because Mexico's playing in it. And then finally, Mexico City versus South Africa. This game hit a all-time high in advertised pricing about 134, 135 days ago, and it's been cooling off a little bit ever since. But in the past week, we've seen a little bit of resurgence for this tournament opener here versus South Africa. And no matter what, this game is going to be extremely strong. But in the past 7 days, we've seen some additional increases. All right, so our bottom 3 movers, ironically, the biggest drop is actually also coming from Mexico. Now, this is Monterrey, which has dropped close to 13% for this June 14th game in Monterrey, Sweden versus Tunisia. This game has dropped quite a bit since the first, but you've still got pretty elevated pricing and I think a pretty healthy demand index. I think the reason why this game might be dropping is it's just a tough game to travel to. You've got a European team and an African team playing in Mexico. That's a pretty scattered fan bases coming together here to make this one happen, but still should be a strong game, but I would definitely watch it because pricing has dropped quite a bit. And then Kansas City, we're going to talk all about this one because surprisingly, this is the Messi game, right? Argentina versus Algeria has dropped 10.4%. Now, I'm going to explain why in the next section when we talk about our star power, but long story short, hoteliers have really just now opened up inventory for this game, so they're starting to kind of feel things out a little bit. And then finally, Vancouver. So this is Australia versus Turkey, who also just made the tournament on the 31st. And this game has been sliding for a while now, but in the past week, it's dropped another 4.8% for that forward-looking advertised pricing. So certainly one to keep an eye on if you are in the Vancouver market. Now, let's get to the main topic, which is, of course, Messi versus Ronaldo. Now, when we compare the two superstars, there's a lot of similarities, but also some differences. Leo Messi's 38 years old. Cristiano Ronaldo is 41 years old. They've both got either close to 200 or over 200 caps across their entire career. They've scored a very respectable amount of World Cup games, and they've won the Ballon d'Or too many times to count. So let's take a look at what the pricing and the demand is looking like for each of these group stage games that's going to feature one of these global superstars. Now, let's start here with our first appearance from one of the superstars, which is going to be here June 16th in Kansas City. Now, we just saw in our bottom 3 movers that we're actually losing some forward-looking pricing power for this game, but I really wouldn't be worried. And the reason why actually shows up here in the chart with a lot of these flat lines, right? You see that pricing has been flat for some of these periods far out in the past, and that was just when hoteliers were refusing to open up inventory. Kansas City is one of the smallest supply markets for the entire World Cup, so hoteliers have been extremely protective of their inventory for this game. And it really hasn't been until the past couple of weeks where hoteliers in Kansas City have really started to open up that inventory. And now they're starting to experiment with their pricing a little bit to see what is going to stick with these Argentina and Algeria fans. So I'm really not too worried about this game. Yes, we are off of our all-time peak by close to $100, but still pricing is extremely elevated. And this has actually been one of, if not the highest demand index games of the entire group stage out of all 16 markets. So it's certainly one to keep an eye on, but I wouldn't worry too much if you're a Kansas City hotelier. Now, contrast that with Ronaldo's first game. All of the Houston games right now are showing a lot of promise. They're all increasing in a very similar pattern. So here you've got Portugal versus the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We're very close to an all-time pricing high here. Current pricing in Houston is at $291. And Houston as a market seems to be very, very different. Availability has been wide open for all of the Houston games from what I've seen, but the Houston market started from a much lower pricing baseline. So that's why you see also too, Portugal versus Uzbekistan is following almost an identical trajectory where pricing is just moving up and up and up. Now, here's an interesting fact. Look at the opponent that Ronaldo is playing. You've got Portugal versus the Democratic Republic of the Congo, who just made the tournament. They're ranked 46 in the world, and then Uzbekistan ranked 50 in the world. Now, no offense to either of these countries, but I think a lot of people are coming out to these games because they see this as potentially a somewhat easy win for Portugal, and by extension, an easy win for Ronaldo. So a lot of people, I think, are wanting to scratch this off of their bucket list. They want to be able to say, hey, I saw Ronaldo win live in person at the World Cup in 2026. And let's be honest, this is probably going to be one of, if not the last chance to do so. Now let's move over here to Messi's next two games. We've got these both hosted in Dallas. Dallas has been a really stable market as far as the pricing for the individual game nights goes. So you can see that pricing has not really changed a lot versus almost something like 180 days ago where they were at their high. Things have just kind of been moving sideways ever since. So the pricing seems to be somewhat stable here for Dallas. Current pricing for the Argentina versus Austria game is at $364. And then here, Jordan versus Argentina, I think is also potentially going to be a strong one because you've got, again, no offense to Jordan, but they're currently ranked 63 in the world. Argentina's ranked number 3. So I think a lot of people are going to want to come out to that one to see potentially an easier win for Argentina and Messi. Now, let's talk about storylines and why you should be watching these storylines for the World Cup. I do want to call out Cristiano Ronaldo's last game that he's going to be playing in the group stage. We're seeing extremely strong pricing growth in Miami for this particular game, with pricing close to $500 for this night. It's kind of a perfect storm game here. Out of all 6 games that are currently shown on the screen right now, I'm kind of most excited about this one from a storyline and demand perspective. I think this has a chance to be absolutely massive for the Miami market. Not only that, but you've also got ease of travel. It's pretty easy for folks to get from Colombia to Miami or from Portugal to Miami. You've got these built-in fan bases from Latin America. You've got strong domestic demand. And again, just that storyline factor. So what are our takeaways here? Be sure that you're watching your demand index, watch your pricing as always, but also participate in the World Cup, watch the games, and watch the storylines as well. Both of these guys are either 40 or close to it, so you've also got to factor in things like injuries or, if Argentina is absolutely running away with it, they might sit Messi in the Jordan game. That's also something that you've got to consider. So keep an eye on the World Cup, keep an eye on the storylines that develop because they may turn into real tangible things that you need to action at your hotel. So I know this was a quick rapid fire episode this week, but I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. And next week, we'll be back with another World Cup update with an entirely new theme. Thanks for watching.